Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Environmental Justice Now. My name is Leah Jones, and I am the Water Justice Organizer and Organizing Coordinator here at Virginia Interfaith Power and Light. Before we get started today, I'd like to do a brief line acknowledgement as usual. While we are on a video call and many of us are joining in from different places, it's really important that we remind ourselves that we gather on the unceded land of the indigenous peoples. I am joining in from so-called Richmond, Virginia, and I am on the land of the Powhatan and Chickahominy peoples. So if you are unsure of whose land you are on and you would like to learn more and find out, you can always visit native-land.ca. All right, so getting started with today's episode this week of Environmental Justice Now. It's no secret, every week we come here and talk about the many communities across Virginia, but also our nation that continue to suffer from the toxins of fossil fuel pollution, sea level rise, flooding, extreme heat, and the burden of increasing utility bills and shutoffs, in addition to a long list of other burdens. And while most of our advocacy is on the state level, we also advocate at the federal level to alleviate these inequities across Virginia as well. And especially recently, we've noticed an uptick in action and conversation around policies and federal funds that can help to advance environmental justice and help protect environmental justice communities nationwide. So just last week, actually, on April 21st, President Biden signed an executive order to revitalize our nation's commitment to environmental justice for all. So during Biden's first week in office, he actually launched what is actually known to be the most ambitious environmental justice agenda in our nation's history, which is, of course, great news. With that being said, it's important that we continue to live up to those words. So continuing on trying to deliver on that vision, the Biden signed an executive order further embedding environmental justice into the work of our federal agencies to in hopes achieve real measurable progress that communities can really depend on. So the administration has now promised various several advancements to work towards addressing the climate crisis and assisting our environmental justice communities in the process. So some of these advancements include deepening the Biden-Harris administration's whole of government commitment to environmental justice, as well as better better protection of overburdened communities from pollution and environmental harms. This also includes strengthening engagement with communities and mobilizing federal agencies to confront existing and legacy barriers that continue to be injustices up to this day, as well as promoting the latest science, data, and research, including on cumulative impacts that we see within various environmental justice communities throughout the nation. Additionally, this executive order is calling to expand interagency coordination and launch a new Office of Environmental Justice within the White House Council on Environmental Quality. Also, it calls to increase accountability and transparency in federal environmental justice policy, which I think is very huge because up until this point, there has been the transparency has not really been there when we're seeing interactions between our federal government and environmental policies, especially when we're talking about addressing the injustices and inequities that exist within our communities due to environment. So in addition to that, lastly, what this executive order is calling to do is to honor and build on the foundation of ongoing environmental justice work that has already been done, just keeping it up. So, from the executive order, in addition to many of other things that fall within that executive order, there are quite a few things that we here at VIPL support. And we just wanted to take the episode today to share more about the different initiatives that we are supporting. And we're hoping that we'll address these ongoing inequities that continue to exist throughout our communities here in Virginia and nationwide. So I know many of us have already heard by now of the Inflation Reduction Act. This is a historic investment that will encourage clean energy, electrification, resilience, and building efficiency. VIPL has supported this monumental bill actually since its introduction as the Build Back Better bill. We were at a time we were talking about this. The Build Back Better bill, I guess now a year or so ago at this point, or even more than that, I believe. So it's been in the making for a long time now, right? And we've been in support of it ever since its birth as the Build Back Better bill. And we are very grateful for the $3 billion in environmental justice block grants and the $1 billion for public housing efficiency improvements that are coming because of the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. And in addition to that, a few things to highlight coming out of this Inflation Reduction Act that I think are important for our communities to be looking forward to are one, nearly $370 million in climate and energy investments, including clean energy tax credits for solar and wind, electric vehicles, efficiency upgrades, and heat pumps. This point especially I feel like is important for our everyday families, our places of worships, receiving tax credits for creating a more sustainable home, more sustainable places of worship. Really great incentive, right? In addition to that, more than $60 billion dollars is going towards environmental justice priorities, and up to $60 billion dollars are also going towards domestic clean energy manufacturing, which is huge, right? In addition to that, $27 billion dollars is being spent to speed the development of emissions reductions technologies, especially in disadvantaged communities. As we all know, and if not, we are aiming to hit a target of reducing our carbon emissions. So, putting more funds to invest towards cleaner energy solutions so that we can try and meet those goals is so important. And also, a fee on methane pollution from oil and gas facilities and infrastructure, starting at $900 per ton, is also a part of this Inflation Reduction Act. In addition, lastly, the last piece that I wanted to mention to highlight as a part, something coming out of this Inflation Reduction Act that is especially important for faith communities and our people in their everyday homes, residents in their everyday homes, are things like rebates, grants, and other incentives for clean energy installations and energy efficiency improvements, electrification, and EV charging stations that are coming. So we can tell that we are no longer going back and forth about whether or not we need to be making these advancements towards a cleaner, more sustainable environment and economy, right? And this is why this legislation is so huge, so important, because it really helps, I believe, to just a step towards backing up, making those solutions possible for and making our future possible, right? In hopes that we can reduce our carbon emissions. So, in addition to the IRA, um, in addition to all those things that I just listed within the IRA, the act also advances the Justice 40 initiative. If you haven't heard about Justice 40 requires 40% of all the benefits of all climate and clean energy investments to be spent in disadvantaged communities. So, hundreds of federal programs, including those established by the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure and Investment Act, representing historic investments, are being reimagined and transformed to meet this goal within Justice 40 to maximize the benefits, particularly towards disadvantaged communities. So these categories of investment within Justice 40 are climate change, once again, clean energy and efficiency, clean transit, affordable and sustainable housing, which is very important, which oftentimes gets left behind when we're talking about environment and environmental justice communities, in addition to training and workforce development, as well as the remediation and reduction of legacy pollution. So the pollution that has existed in communities for years and years and years. Um, and lastly, it encourages the development of critical clean water and wastewater infrastructure that, once again, like affordable and sustainable housing, a lot of the times can needs to be updated. The infrastructure is poor, and it means it's not efficient and also can be dangerous for residents to use. So ultimately, all of these federal opportunities for funding and advancing and progressing EJ communities, we think really represents a meaningful shift towards adequate resourcing, climate justice for climate justice, and will positively affect many communities that we even here in Virginia work among. So another federal policy, the last federal policy that I'd like to share with you all today, that is coming down the pipeline. Well, don't want to use the word pipeline, but is coming through to communities, is under the Environmental Justice for All Act, that is actually came from Donald McKeechin. May he rest in peace. And I'm sure many of us have heard about all of the amazing work that Donald McKeechin has done to support and advance climate and environmental justice. And the Environmental Justice Act for All is a huge part of that. And this act, it sets the tone and a trajectory for fair and just treatment of individuals and communities as a baseline. Among other things, it establishes the right to seek lawful action when faced with environmental racism, especially. So it also defines and requires consideration of cumulative impacts of polluting projects and permitting under the Clean Water and Air Acts. So what makes this bill so special to us, we believe, is especially this part about communities being able to advocate for themselves and advocate for the basic rights that we all have, which is the right to having clean air, drink clean water, have clean water recreationally, and be free to live a healthy life, especially as it relates to our environment. So I know I've listed quite a few things in just a short amount of time, and I tried my best to hit the main points. But the key is we are just getting started in all of this work, and it's going to take consistent, persistent efforts to try and make this a reality. And we see every day new pushback happening left and right against environmental progress, and progress for and against progress for our environmental justice community. So to make this a real reality, to make this a true reality, we are asking you all to please get in touch with your representatives to co-sponsor this act, specifically the Environmental Justice for All Act. And before you contact your representative, you can also check out more about who your representatives are if you are unaware. We're going to be, the links here are up on the screen, and we'll be sure to drop them in the comments as well. When that being said, I think that is all I have for you all today, talking about federal funding for EJ communities. We will be sure to keep you all up to date as we continue to see how these advancements unfold within our communities here in Virginia. So please keep up with us. And if you would like to stay up to date with everything else ongoing with VIPL outside of environmental justice now, as usual, you can join our supporters list at this link here, where you can keep up with everything VIPL, upcoming events, workshops, as well as things that we are doing in coalition with others. So we hope to see you all next week, and we hope to see you all around. Thank you so much for joining, and have a great weekend.